So let's start with the prayers. If you've got the prayers. Okay. Until I reach enlightenment, I take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By accumulating merit and wisdom through generosity and the other perfections, may I attain Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings. Until I reach enlightenment, I take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By accumulating merit and wisdom through generosity and the other perfections, may I attain Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings. Until I reach enlightenment, I take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By accumulating merit and wisdom through generosity and the other perfections, may I attain Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings. May all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all sentient beings never be separated from the happiness that is free from suffering. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free from attachment and anger that holds some close and others distant. I pay homage to the sublime mother of the victorious ones of the three times, the inexpressible, inconceivable, and indescribable perfection of wisdom, which is unborn, unceasing, and of the nature of space, and which is the object of realization of the self-knowing primordial wisdom. Oh yeah, great. Yes, thank you. Okay. So, before we go back to the material, there were some doubts. I'm not sure I'm going to get into all of them. So, I think, well, what Jim talked about, like our sense of being male or female, and he said, like, well, maybe we shouldn't spend too much time looking into the mirror. I don't think it was meant in a harsh way. There's some smileys, or some laughing emojis. Then this question would not arise. Okay. I mean, he then explains it later on that we do very much identify with our gender. But of course, if I think back, for instance, the time when Jitsuma Denzin Palmo first became ordained, that she couldn't get certain teachings because she was not a woman. Now, a lot has changed since then, but that is pretty serious. I mean, like not being able to do certain things that don't affect your Dharma practice, I think, okay, that's, yeah, it's unfortunate and definitely difficult. However, if it's like you can't take teachings because you're female, then that's a huge problem. And so whether you identify with your gender or not, others identify with your gender and don't allow you to. So those, in the past it was like that, but it has changed so much. I don't think there's anyone nowadays who would say a woman can't attend a teaching. But there's something about, identifying very strongly with our own gender, and forgetting we were male. If we're female now, we were male many times in the past, and if we're male, we were female many times in the past. So thinking back in that way, it may be helpful not to identify too strongly with who we are now, just in case that's a problem. Yes, so there are quite a few messages. Yeah, Bernd, what he says, very nice what he says, but I'm not even going to get into that. You can read it. So I didn't read it just before coming to class, so I'll have to look at it again. But then Banu sent a message. She says, and this is quite interesting, especially in regard to what we've been discussing here about the different realms. Can we take them literally or not? Are there other realms of existence other than the human and the animal realm? Those we can all agree, they exist, but what about hell realm? Just saying it is so weird, the hell realm. I feel like a Christian priest, you go to hell. No, they don't necessarily say that, but yeah, so Preta realm, celestial realm, that's so difficult. I mean, I don't know whether it's not, for us, it's not more difficult to believe in these realms than to believe in reincarnation. Don't know. It depends, right? So she's asking whether they can be seen, can we take them literally, or are they to be seen metaphorically? Metaphorically in the sense hell on earth. You can experience hellish existences. I mean, as a human being, can have hellish experiences. Remember I told you about the child that was born with a nerve disease, having the experience of being burned alive, like the same pain. But of course that didn't happen. However, for that child, it felt as if it was burned alive the whole time. A terrible disease, and unfortunately the child passed away in the end, but stayed with that pain for quite some time. So that would be like hell on earth if you think about, oh, could you move over a little bit? There's someone coming now. Sorry, no, that's okay. There's another space here. Okay, therefore, metaphorically or can be taken literally. And then she gives the example of Mount Meru. Metaphorical, is it metaphorical, or does it have to be taken literally? Interesting comparison, right? Mount Meru, like the way, for instance, the second chapter of the Abhidhamma Kosha, Vasubandhu's Treasury of Knowledge, describes our existence with like Mount Meru in the center, the 4 continents, and so forth. So the 4 continents, also the 4 types of human existence, of which we only belong to one type. So is that metaphorical, or can it be taken literally? Okay, extending this to the idea, and then we talked about abandoning the Dharma. Very important concept, since abandoning the Dharma is considered to be so negative. And we had quite some discussions about this last time with what Aidan said. I thought about that again. I'll address it in a moment. But yeah, so extending this to the ideas of reincarnation in the existence of ghosts and celestial realms, you said that as long as one doesn't dismiss the possibility that they are literally true, that they're literally these realms, and is open to them being true, it would not be considered abandonment of the Dharma. Right now, I don't know. I prefer to take it metaphorically, but I don't know, right? Keep it open. Conversely, if one does if one does deem them symbolic and dismisses the possibility of them being literally true, it would be considered abandonment of the Dharma. Does this also apply to the reverse? If one deems them to be literally true and dismisses the possibility of it only being symbolism meant to be interpreted, would it also be considered abandonment of the Dharma? Right? We don't know in the end. We don't know which way we should think of them. If not, then how does one discern between the 2 approaches? My apologies if this is argumentative. No, this is great. She's debating. This is not, be argumentative. It's very good to always question and have that inquisitive kind of attitude, like, how about this? How about that? My intention is only to learn and dispel my misunderstanding. Yes, absolutely. Very good. Now, first of all, what is the difference between saying Mount Meru is possibly metaphorical, but it's different with the realms? Do you think, or is it the same? Do you think it's the same? Saying, okay, just as basically we know in terms of modern science, His Holiness has said on numerous occasions, just recently His Holiness said, I really enjoyed studying the Perfection of Wisdom Sutras. I enjoyed studying the Perfection. How did I suddenly? How weird. I really enjoyed studying the Perfection of Wisdom Sutra. I enjoyed studying Madhyamika, His Holiness said quite clearly. I didn't enjoy just studying Abhidharma Kosha. I didn't like that much because of the second chapter, which talks about the realms in a way that I cannot accept. This is against the scientific understanding, so that wasn't really my thing. He said quite bluntly. And many people follow that view nowadays. They do not take this explanation to be literal. But then you could argue, well, why should we then take the hell realms and so forth literally? If this idea of this world system according to the Abhidharma Kosha is metaphorical, well then, what about the hell realm and so forth? Is it the same? No, it's not. Okay, Aidan says no. Aidan, why not?
Well, something to be proven.
Something to be proven, yes. So it can be proven that there is no Mount Meru and so forth. But maybe it exists in a different realm.
Yeah, we don't live on Jambudvipa, right?
Pardon?
We don't live on Jambudvipa.
Jambudvipa, yes. So I think what Aidan is saying, according to the Vasubandhu's explanation, this is something we should be perceiving. It's part of our world. It's not saying, oh, the Preta beings, they have a Mount Meru, but the humans don't. Or the celestial beings, they have a Mount Meru, but humans don't. It's saying we are part of this world system, one of the 4 human existences that they describe. We're one of them, the Jambudvipa, part of Jambudvipa. And so, therefore, we should be seeing Mount Meru if it really existed. Now with these other realms, okay. So Mount Meru is out. So the other realms, are they metaphorical or not? The scriptures definitely suggest they're not. I mean, but you could still say, oh, that can't be taken literally. It could have been taught by the Buddha to some in a metaphorical way. I cannot deny that. I mean, I don't know, it's possible. But I think he's also taught that to be an actual realm. And trust me, I've had a really hard time with that in the very beginning. I found that even more difficult than reincarnation, the idea of reincarnation, that there are other realms. It was like, whoa, this is... Well, first of all, because of my background, having been raised Catholic, and, you know, the hell realm, and, yeah, well, it was mainly about the hell. I mean, it wasn't like the Preta realm, they didn't talk about that. But, yeah, so that was definitely a put off somehow. I mean, like, you know, didn't attract me too much. But then also, I couldn't see it. And that's the thing. Why did I have such a hard time? Okay, my background. But besides that, because I can't see it. What else? What is the reason why we have a hard time with the existence of other realms? Other than, and leave aside the Christian, and I mean, maybe they got it right. Again, why don't we believe in the Christian version? All right, that's forever. That's the difference. The Tibetan, the Buddhist version is like a provisional, it's a temporary state. But why don't we believe in it? Because we can't see it. Doesn't it come down to that? Or is there another reason? I could be totally wrong. What would be another reason? Yes, Aidan?
They're too specific.
Pardon?
The descriptions are too specific.
The descriptions are too specific. Okay, but if I can't see it, but I assume someone else sees it, they can give specific descriptions. Is it like no one sees it at all? I can't see it and no one else sees it? No, but I assume the Buddha has seen it, so he gives specific explanations. Fair enough. Wouldn't that... Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, but to respond to what I just said.
So a certain person might have that specific hell experience, right? Of the trees with the blades when you go up and come down.
Right.
But it's not that that's a general space where people go who've done a range of crimes and things like that.
So it's not a special place as such. So you're saying there's no such place. This is a very subjective experience of like some people climbing up a tree, and when they climb up, it's no problem. When they come down, they're being cut because of all the razors. It sounds a little bit like spooky, like some kind of, yeah.
And there's one specific one, you know, the person who was mean to their mother in some way, I forget, it's in the word of sharp weapons. And then it's in some place where he keeps having his head chopped off, and then be reborn.
Oh, right. So I think what Aidan is saying, it seems to be more a personal experience. it says more like, well, one person had accumulated such and such karma, and as a result of that, they had their head chopped off again and again, like undergoing that suffering again and again. So there was a very specific action that resulted in a very specific experience, but it doesn't seem like there's a whole realm of people having their heads chopped off the whole time. Okay, so that's this argument. Okay, yes. Yeah, okay.
One argument for the possibility of hell realms, for example, existing, and not even thinking of Buddhist explanations, would be like before X-rays were discovered, we couldn't see through the bodies. So if we had X-ray vision, we could see it, but we don't have it. So it means there is a limitation to our perception.
Right,
so
exactly.
That means maybe we just can't see them. I mean, it doesn't prove that they exist,
okay.
but it doesn't disprove that
yes. All right. So Venerable Yangjin's argument is, and it's for the recording, I need to repeat it. So she's saying, well, there's lots of stuff we don't see. We can't see X-rays. We can't see microwaves. We can't see a lot of stuff. I mean, now through X-rays, we can see through people's body, which we couldn't do in the past. So it's no surprise that there are things we just simply can't see because our sense consciousnesses don't have that ability. So similarly, why couldn't there be other forms of existence that simply our sense consciousnesses are not enough to see them? Okay, yeah, I think you were first. Go ahead. Did you raise your hand? Yeah, go ahead.
Is it easier to be resistant to believing something that you don't want to be true?
Is it easier to resist something, to resist the belief it's something if you don't want it to be true? Oh yeah, that's true. Wishful thinking, right? All right, that's a good point. Okay, we just don't want it to be true. Okay, yes.
If you turn it around the other way,
okay.
The idea of the Christian heaven,
right.
I think sometimes when people have loved ones who die or die themselves,
right.
there is a strong wish to believe
yes.
it's a wonderful place.
Right. So the good stuff we like to believe in, but the bad stuff, right, that's so true. People always assume everyone goes to heaven. Right? Like in the West, it's like they're in heaven, but who knows where. So yeah, that's a good point. The hell realms, so the celestial realms therefore seem a little easier versus the hell realms. Okay, yes.
But we cannot, there's for sure animal realm, we can all perceive it.
Yes.
But then what I find complicated, but I think it's just the way how it is explained, is we say the greedy people or the jealous people are in this realm, this people are in this realm, and I think our karma is so mixed up. No one is like 100% greedy or 100% angry. So it's like part of me going to the hell realm, part of the animal, and part in the
That's a really good point. Very good point. She's saying, well, with these realms, it seems so simplified. Like if you're a greedy person, you go there. If you are, I don't know, you've killed someone, you go there. It's so simplified. Like she's saying, I'm much more than that. I mean, sometimes I'm greedy, sometimes I'm not. Am I going to be split into half and one part goes there? That's a really good point. Well, the thing is also with the teachings on the hell realm, interestingly, they're teachings that, how can I put it? They are very much simplified. And I think oftentimes they were given to Tibetans, like they were not the difficult teachings on emptiness and on the 12 links, they're very complicated. Unless you have some philosophical knowledge, it's hard to follow. But, like when His Holiness teaches, you may have noticed there are a few minutes of philosophy. So probably some of the Tibetans, for instance, a lot of Tibetans always attending, but they take out their flask and have some tea. Like this is too complicated for the time being, right? And then there come the things that are good for them. Like they can identify. It's like His Holiness speaks to them, like talking about don't be unkind, live the way based on Buddhism, be kind and kind-hearted. So there are always times when His Holiness speaks directly, also to everyone else who knows philosophy, but specifically to those who most of the time don't understand. So it seems with the hell realms, oftentimes it's addressed to a wider audience without much specifics about which link of the da and so forth. So simplifying things, you kill, you go to the hell realm. You're greedy. And of course it's not like that. It's not like that at all. Because even when you kill someone, even the act of killing, if you kill because you want to help someone, I mean, for instance, euthanasia. In the West, in Switzerland, for instance, you can now, certain people, if they have a terminal disease and they're in great pain, I don't know what the conditions have to be, but it's possible to undergo euthanasia, to have a doctor give you an injection to die, right? So is this doctor going to go to hell? No, it's not like that. And we know the story of the Buddha, where he killed someone out of pure compassion. So there was the karma of killing, because there was the intention to kill, and the result was just a brief moment of suffering, and the rest was a blissful experience. And I think it's so true that karma is a lot more complicated. You have the motivation before you engage in the action. You have the motivation while you engage in the action. And you have the conclusion. In order for a complete action to take place, you need all three. And so the motivation, like the causal motivation, is negative. But while you're doing this, you're thinking, okay, I'm going to rob this bank. First, you're like, I'm going to keep all this money. But while you're robbing, you're thinking, there's so many poor people, I mean, that can't afford their health care and so forth. I'm going to give away the money. I wonder. And then you rejoice, well, I've got all this money I can give away now. There is some non-virtue, no doubt, but it's really changed drastically. And so I agree with her. That's a very good point. It's not that simple. And they just make it sound like, to ordinary people, just to be super careful. I mean, because we were creatures of habit, and you do it once, you do it twice, and so kind of like, oh, just one act of negativity can bring you to hell. Then ordinary, I guess, Tibetans and Indians and so forth, who listen to the Dharma are probably more careful. Yeah. So I think that's also the point, maybe Aidan is similar to what Aidan said. It just seemed like a story, like a horror story, not even very sophisticated. Like, it's not like, whoa, lots of twists and turns. No, you did this, head chopped off all day long, done. Right? Yeah. Okay. Go ahead.
Because of the dream experience.
Because of the dream experience.
I think it's perfectly possible to have, those kind of experiences. The body, it can just be in some realm where
right.
you have experience of that, which can last for whatever length.
So we can have dreams that don't make any sense. I don't know, all night long, whenever you dream. Actually, we probably all have that experience. First chapter, second chapter, you wake up in between, but then you go back to dreaming the same dream. So it's like you've got different chapters, and all night long you have your head chopped off. So it seems very simple, but we have those dreams as well, right? That's true. Okay, Venerable Andrina, you.
Just one more thought concerning hell realms. I find it interesting that it doesn't belong only to the Buddhist tradition, but also in the Christian tradition. So it might be some archetypical heritage or some knowledge, human knowledge.
Oh, so it seems a little bit, so because in Christianity and possibly in other religions, what about Judaism? Does anyone know whether there's hell in Judaism? I'm not sure, I don't know. So definitely in Christianity, in Hinduism, I'm pretty sure, in some of the different Hinduistic, different kind of Hindu traditions, I don't know, I suppose. So it seems like, well, if they come up with it, maybe there's some truth to it. Okay, yes. But of course, that's also not, it's not a tight, an airtight argument, because if lots of people believe the earth is flat, that doesn't make it true, and there were lots of cultures who did. And they influence each other, that's for sure. That the different religions, they did influence one another. Okay. But still, it's something to consider. Well, the thing is, I agree in general that it seems too simplistic, But the Buddha, when he taught karma, this is also something unique. The Buddha, when he taught karma, he took specific cases. He wasn't saying this is true for everyone. But because karma, he himself said it, it's extremely subtle. So how can you teach in general something that is extremely subtle? You just can't. You can give a general explanation. If you accumulate non-virtue, you'll experience suffering. All that is possible. But to have the more specific, to understand the more specific workings of karma, you need to do what you could nowadays call case studies. I mean, particular examples of people experiencing, right? He said like, oh, there's this being that's got this many heads because of such and such, this kind of monster, sea monster, or this person. And then specifying that was one action they accumulated, and that resulted in that experience, which is possible. I mean, going back to what Rika, is that, yeah, what Rika said. I mean, I think it's possible, like sometimes we accumulate an incredible non-virtue that stays with us our entire life, kind of like we don't purify it. We haven't done anything. I mean, people in their whole life, they never do anything bad, but one day they rob a bank, or one day they get rid of their, I don't know, the person who's fooling around with their husband or wife. That's possible. And they're never caught. However, in the end, what happens? They may be reborn in a state for some time because of that, right? Does that make sense? So that's possible in terms of experiencing a certain result of a certain action, right? Oh, I didn't recognize. Is it working?
Yes.
Great. Okay, I'm just connecting to the internet myself, then I know, yeah, it's working. Okay, great. So it's curious that people who, they get beaten up once and then they again. So it's bizarre that sometimes a karma ripens over and over again. You just can't tell. You're thinking, finally I found the person I'm going to be happy with. And again, it happens, throughout their entire life. Or other things. I'm sure every one of us has an example where you notice the same thing happens again and again. If it's positive, we don't complain and we don't think about it. But if it's negative, we notice, wow, right? We move to a different place. And again, something happens again and again. You get your stuff stolen all the time, or people treat you in a way that you don't like to be treated. So that's very specific, and no one else has that experience. Which is why I would argue the Buddha could have talked about that experience and say, look, this person, maybe they have done something similar to someone else, and now they experience this throughout their entire life. But the hell realms, like the whole head cutting, and it's so cruel, like it's so. But how else can you describe an experience, someone having an experience of incredible physical pain? I mean, let's face it, if in the human realm you have incredible physical pain, there's nothing you can do. Mental pain, you can still somehow, well, even then, it's very hard. I mean, but if it's like all day long, just that physical, it's so debilitating that you can't live a normal life, right? So it seems extreme, but I guess it's also possible. And the hell realm is extreme. It's the extremist form. So then if you think of the preta realm, maybe that's a little easier. Like being greedy, especially in the 21st century, people like never getting enough, and having that greed. But still, I think the difficulty lies in the fact that we can't see it, right? Because if we could, we would believe it, wouldn't you? If you could see it now, if somehow science found a way, it's not called a microscope, it's called a hell scope or something, whatever, or a different realm scope. Like if science really came up, just as they came up with means to see X-rays or, whatever, or at least they can prove the existence of microwaves, etc. So there are ways to do that. If they can prove that, we would believe it, wouldn't we? We'd be like, oh, weird, still kind of weirded out, but we would definitely believe it. If there's now a peace prize, not a peace prize, a Nobel Prize for discovering these realms, everyone would believe it. right? So the thing is, I think it comes down to not being able to perceive it. But I could be wrong. I'm just putting it out there. So anyway, I wanted to address that. And the thing is, especially when you study the 6th chapter and more on emptiness, how everything is subjective. There's no objective world. Then it's no longer surprising. We're not saying there's a place, an actual place that we could go to. We couldn't, because right now we have a human mind and it doesn't allow us to go there, even if it's right in this room. So then I think it makes more sense, doesn't it? Anyway, okay. I couldn't really answer her question, but I still thought to address it. I thought it was really good. I mean, it was an interesting idea. Wait, now I lost it. Where is the... Is this the Uma class? Oh, discussion. Okay, it's working again. Okay. Just a sec. Oh, yeah. Phyllis says, you explained that there's a subtle form of Mara of death. You remember we talked about the Mara of death? The 4 Maras? Again, really weird word, but evil forces they're sometimes called as well. So the 4 Maras, very important. When you study the Perfectional Wisdom Sutras, it's one whole chapter on them, and it comes up all the time. You come across the Maras all the time. And they're actually 4 different types that keep us from liberation and enlightenment. Of course, one of them is the afflictions. There's death. There's the aggregates. And there's external influence or inner kind of imprints that prevent you from from practicing. So death, the question is about the subtle type of death. It says in your notes, page 59, it says a more refined. So the subtle type of the Mara of death. The coarse type of death is our uncontrolled death. Right now, we have no control over when we'll die, how we'll die, no control. And we're told again and again, be ready, it could happen anytime. That's the coarse type of death, right? And that really sucks. I mean, we usually feel like got enough time to practice, but don't feel like this could be my last day, and don't practice with the same sense of urgency we would if we knew we're going to die tomorrow. So therefore, yeah, death is actually seen as a huge obstacle because, well, we're never ready for it and we don't really prepare for it, and therefore we don't practice in the right way. But then there's the subtler type of death, Mara of death, which is experienced at the latest for a bodhisattva, like a bodhisattva on the 8th ground. They are no longer experiencing the coarse type of death. There is more control, in other words. And so thinking of the lamas, I mean, I think even earlier, although the coarse type of death, you eliminate it only on the 8th ground, but you could suppress it. You could possibly suppress it and already gain more control once you realize emptiness directly. Therefore, a bodhisattva who's realized emptiness directly can possibly determine when they die. Now, if you remember Lama Zopa Rinpoche, who passed away 2 years ago, a little more than 2 years ago, I'm pretty sure Lama Zopa Rinpoche decided, right? Felt it was the right time and passed away. He remained in the clear light mind, in the meditation of death. So he could be a Buddha, then of course there's total control, we don't know. He could be a highly evolved bodhisattva, that's at the very least. So to us it seems like total control. Total control. So it's a little weird, like especially when it comes to these highly evolved bodhisattva, we have a sense they totally control it. Like His Holiness the Dalai Lama, when he passed away, the previous Dalai Lama, the 13th Dalai Lama, when he passed away, if you read the story, it was totally controlled. He went into meditation, and then because he was born, I believe, in the east of Tibet, from Lhasa. I think it was towards the east. Is that right? I think it's from Lhasa. Somehow I remember. I don't know. Where's Lhasa? Where's Amdo? I don't know. Anyway, never mind. So I guess it was from Lhasa scene. It was to the east that he was reborn, And the head turned. After 2 days, the head was facing towards the east. And there was like a fungus in the form of a shape, in the shape of a star that grew at one of the pillars. So again, the eastern direction. Right? I mean, there's so much control, even like telling people while His Holiness was still in meditation, I mean, was in the death meditation, was not dead yet, therefore, showing basically already the direction. So there's so much control, like this is where you need to go, this direction. So where is that subtle, uncontrolled aspect? Well, His Holiness could, of course, be a Buddha. So then, then of course, so I asked that myself. I remember I also asked this, right? In what way? Because, it seemed to me there's total control. But the point, we're going back to this. With these high lamas, it seems there's total control because there probably, maybe is, if they're already fully enlightened. And even if there is no full control, we would never know. But one of my teachers said they have no control necessarily when they die. I mean, in some case, they know when they die. They can make all the preparations, but they cannot postpone it, they said. They cannot postpone it. So, of course, with the Buddha also eventually dies, but purely because of our karma. In this case, it's purely our karma. If it's people's karma to have a Buddha around, they'll stay around. Total control. Don't have to die. While a bodhisattva, even if it's a highly realized bodhisattva, although it's everyone's karma for them to remain, they may have to die. I mean, they just die. The time is up for them. It doesn't, because it's still not, they die and they're born because their causes are the imprints. The imprints from ignorance. Remember, we talked about this last time. It's the imprints of ignorance that allow them to be reborn. It's also, of course, great compassion and prayers that play a large role, but it's not completely pure yet. It's what they're still left with, the imprints at the very least. Those are the last obscurations they have. And this is one of the causes, and it's limited. Thus, according to one of my teachers at least, there's not the same degree of control. Yeah, that's all I can say. Maybe I should rewrite it a little bit. That's not yet fully controlled. I based it on what I found in the text as to the definition. There's no full control, no full freedom. And the example that was given from my teacher was this. Okay. And then Shubham says, one of Geshe Damda's students once explained to me that the realms can be understood as mental states, each characterized by a predominant emotion. So somewhere it could be seen as metaphorical realms, but I could be wrong, so please correct. As far as I can recall, hell realm anger, hungry ghost greed, demigod jealousy. I don't think Geshe Damdala would say that. Are you a student of Geshe Damdala? Are you a student of Geshe Damdala?
You look at me?
No? You're in the very back with a pink... No? Okay. All right.
I did not hear him say it, but I don't know.
You don't hear him. Oh, yeah, you're a student. Yeah, that's right. Okay. Yeah, I'd be surprised because the texts seem to be saying they do exist. So to keep an open mind is a good idea. And to think they just could be here and we just don't perceive them. And in the end, they're all subjective experiences, such as every human existence is a totally subjective experience. No single human existence is the same as someone else's. Yeah, we share similar experiences sometimes, but they're never the same. But that takes me also back to what I said last time about abandoning the Dharma. Okay. Now, first of all, just to remind you, we discussed some of the aspects that Lama Tsongkhapa just briefly addresses. He says that not only is it difficult, of course, to have a precious human rebirth. I guess all of us pretty much have. So that obstacle we've kind of, for the time being, have overcome. I guess most of us, it's pretty precious. I mean, all the leisures and so forth. Then faith in the Dharma. Okay, that's more difficult. A little bit faith, okay. But, faith enough to be a hobby Buddhist or spend my life Buddhist, right? I mean, really, there's hobby Buddhism, isn't there? I mean, people do it sometimes when they have a problem or when they've got nothing else to do, then they remember Buddhism. And some people, it's become their entire life. Okay, so faith depends. And even if you, well, obviously, you know, at least externally, it looks like I live my life according to the Dharma. Faith, I mean, I would be practicing much harder if I had the kind of pure faith. Okay, so that's really difficult. And then we heard about bodhicitta and great compassion anyway. But what Lama Tsongkhapa also beautifully addresses, well, actually Arya Nagarjuna does in his text, he says, be careful of certain things. So what should we be careful of? What does he warn us to be careful of? Number one, injuring a bodhisattva. Don't injure a bodhisattva. You're injuring all sentient beings indirectly. They've dedicated their entire life for the benefit of sentient beings. If they get sick because of you, if they get injured, I think it talks about physical injury, they can't work effectively, so that's a huge problem. Disparaging them is just as bad, right? In the sense that it may lead to actual physical harm. You hold that resentment, you may act in a way that still harms them, you may influence other people, so even that is really dangerous. So be careful about not harming bodhisattvas. Then, of course, we don't know who's a bodhisattva, so even more reason to be super careful. Then there's what? Go ahead.
Abandoning the Dharma.
Abandoning the Dharma, okay. What comes before that? The act of Mara, right? The act of Mara. So don't prevent others from practicing, I guess, from the context it becomes clear. And then there's abandoning the Dharma. And I was thinking about what Aidan asked. He asked about a particular friend of his, I believe you said. So he is a monk from the Theravada tradition and believes very strongly, the way you put it, very strongly, that the teachings of the universal vehicle, or the Mahayana as they're also called, were not taught by the Buddha. Is that person accumulating that obscuration of abandoning the Dharma? So I thought about this the last few days, because it's not as simple as that. I don't think so. One thing about negative actions, we usually engage in them with a passion, right? We're not as passionate about positive actions usually. I mean, what does it mean to be passionate with like a lot of emotions, right? So to give you an example, like, are we so passionate about being loving and meditating? No, we do it because we think it's right, but I'm not sure. I mean, for someone highly advanced, of course, they couldn't think of anything more pleasant than that. But when we're angry with someone, we do that with a passion. We don't like someone. Someone says something to us and we can go days on end thinking about like what they've done to us, how dare they. So we're quite passionate about that, right? Now, something we learn a lot about Buddhist practice is bring your passion into your practice. I mean, our emotions are so powerful. I mean, our whole life is basically controlled by emotions. Emotions are extremely powerful. Now, in the negative, of course, a lot of the problems in this world are very strong emotions. Dislike, hatred, envy, greed. A lot of the terrible things that happen, and these are very strong in people. So strong that they start wars, they start conflicts, they start all sorts of terrible actions. But in the opposite direction, I mean, when it comes to positive things, I mean, people being in love, but that's also usually being in love when it's like really strong. You know, it's crazy. It's attachment sometimes. People go out of their way to kill their what is it called? Not opponent, but their rivals in a romantic relationships, right? They go out of their way. So therefore, in Buddhist practice, we are told, and this is just not important to what I'm trying to say, but that's why in Buddhist practice we're told, make it passionate. Make it as passionate as you can, right? Even fake it, never mind. But when you meditate, try to bring some like, wow, this is amazing, emptiness is so, right? Like get that passion going, because only then can you counteract this other passion, that negative passion. So just that in general. Very important when you practice. Don't just go, I go for refuge to the Buddha. When is it breakfast time, right? No, really, wow, the Buddha, he's amazing. What a guy, you know, so kind, amazing. His teachings, oh my God, what would I do without them? To really think about this. So like, I'm so grateful. He's so amazing. And then all these people practicing, it's hard, but they do it. So, you know, bring in that enthusiasm because it's so powerful. And then of course, generosity, you know, just fake it in the beginning, but you can fake it basically, like spend a moment to really get yourself going to make it effective. And so taking this back to abandoning the Dharma, I think if there's really that negative passion, then it becomes truly abandoning the Dharma. Like, these weirdos. You know, like sometimes people don't really like Tibetan Buddhism. They see all these drawings. I mean, it wasn't long ago when Tibetan Buddhism was called Lamaism, right? Oh, these degenerates. I mean, it was like they saw it from afar. I mean, who traveled to Tibet? It was difficult to travel there, and anyway, you couldn't easily get into Tibet. So it was like they saw it from afar, maybe some photographs, and thought they're just degenerates. And it was like, it made them possibly angry. Look at these degenerates, you know, how they're behaving. Some people, that would be abandoning the Dharma. But if someone feels, okay, according to my understanding, I believe this is not right. Of course, there's some gaps in the understanding, possibly. But, you know, you can't do everything. I mean, like, you have your opinions about things. And if there's no resentment and it's not driven by an over-attached, kind of a strong attachment to your own system only, I think it's not necessarily abandoning the Dharma. It's like Zika said, it's much more complicated than that, right? She basically said that. She keeps saying things that also some of your questions before that I don't forget. No, very good, that point. She's so right. It's much more complicated than that. And so I think we need to see in every case. I don't want to say someone abandons the Dharma if they're a good Dharma teacher and they just don't agree, right? But I would still encourage an openness, okay. But in the end, if I make up my mind about something because I just don't have all the facts, and to get all the facts, I may have to, you know, leave everything behind and suddenly study a system, then, right? And of course, it's not surprising. I mean, like 2,600 years ago, everything that's in the teachings, I mean, some people doubt that certain things were taught by the Buddha. It's possible someone sneaked something in, believing that was said by the Buddha. Believing, I mean, could be a mistake. They thought it was the Buddha said it, but it's actually someone else. We don't know. So to keep an open mind, but it's possible. Some people said that the second chapter of Vasubandhu's text of the Abhidhammakosha, it wasn't taught by the Buddha. I've heard that, but I think the Buddha taught that because he didn't have to teach about how the world really exists. He just went along with the system that already existed. If he started talking about, I mean, people would have thought he was crazy because what is he talking about? A round earth and then the moon and this. I mean, he was not a scientist as such, and it was all about the mind, so there was no need. You could practice just the same way if you believed there was Mount Meru, so there was no need. Yeah. Anyways, it's a complicated subject, but I don't want to accuse someone of abandoning the Dharma. And it has to logically make sense. It has to make sense. Why is it so bad? Why is abandoning the Dharma so bad? Because there's someone deciding it is, and so it becomes bad? No, because it really affects your mind in a powerful way. So if you have resentment, if you have negative emotions when it comes to certain Dharma teachings that could potentially really help you, then it makes more sense. But if you just don't believe it's right and you don't have all the facts, then you can turn around and go, oh, I was wrong, okay. Right? You can easily give up that view. So it depends again. If it's strong, like with anger, if I really hate someone, even if I see they do great things, I may even be jealous. Versus, I just see, okay, this person, what they're doing is not okay, but I don't hate them. Then the moment I see the good they do, I'm happy and I can change my mind about them easily. You see how these negative emotions like attachment and anger, not only, or resentment, not only are they harmful right now, they linger. It's very difficult to let them go, depending on how strong they are. Okay, anyway, that's enough on this. Okay, great. Let's go back to the text. Now we've covered all this, and I think it's a nice kind of summary of what we did so far. I'm actually soon going to give you more material, and I think we can move on. I did spend a lot of time on this, as I said a few times, on these quotes or on these short explanations Lama Tsongkhapa gave, but simply because usually we've already studied them. And if you haven't, so it's maybe good to go into details, but that's enough. Where did we get to? What page was it? 61. 61, oh great. Okay, so today we're actually exactly halfway through. On Monday. So today is the 12th class. So we finish with page 65, then I've got 65 pages more, and it's exactly half. Yep. I've got about 130 pages now. Okay, 61. Yeah. Oh, it's more than 61. Oh no. No, it's more than 61. Must be. Believing. No, you're right. Ah, yes. Okay. So in short, it says on page 62. Bending the teachings. Yeah, we finished. So in short, on 62, the second last paragraph, it says, in short, the Compendium of Sutras explains that injuring a bodhisattva, harboring disparaging thoughts toward them, performing the acts of Mara that undermine the teachings or undermine the practice of a person, and abandoning the Dharma all leave especially deep negative imprints on the mind, and eliminating them is among the most difficult tasks on the path. But again, we have to specify here what the motivation is. All right. And then Lama Tsongkhapa goes on to say, compared to the first two texts, so Precious Garland and Praise to Dharmadhatu, also by Nagarjuna, this work, the Compendium of Sutras, is certainly more explicit. Okay, so why is this important to us? He's introducing us. It's kind of like a book review. No, he's doing more than that. But also in a way, many of these texts, we ignore them, but we shouldn't. So here, I don't think, Precious Garland, we've heard a lot. That's an amazing text. We've heard a lot about Praise to Dharmadhatu or to the ultimate expanse. But Compendium of Sutras? Not that much, right? Do we talk much about? No, right? Okay, anyway. So the Compendium of Sutra, this is certainly more explicit. Nonetheless, for those stages of the path that remain difficult to comprehend, Shantideva, the great upholder of Master Nagarjuna's tradition, remember I talked about him like the upholder of the chariot tradition. He is credited with being one of the great upholders of the tradition of Arya Nagarjuna. So no surprise that in the Tibetan tradition he plays such a huge role. Not just from the point of view of the method aspect, but also from the point of view of the wisdom aspect. Geshe Damdu just taught it, right? The wisdom chapter.
Meditation.
But
Meditation chapter.
Meditation chapter. Oh, it wasn't the wisdom chapter. Okay. A year ago, Geshe Damdu taught that. Okay. In particular, Shantideva presents these elements of the path clearly and most extensively in his Compendium of Training, which is effectively a meaning commentary on Nagarjuna's Compendium of Sutras. We didn't know that, right? Did you know that? First of all, Shantideva, how many texts did he compose? How many very famous texts that we both all know about? two. Now we know there's a second. So usually we know the Bodhisattva way of life. Everyone kind of knows that, Shantideva. But there's another one. His Holiness actually taught it in the 90s, I remember. Pardon?
In the noughties, he taught it.
In what?
In the noughties, as they say.
In the
2000s.
Huh? I can't understand.
2000 something he taught it.
In 2000, was it not in the 90s?
I mean, if he taught it, then he taught it again.
I also remember.
Ah.
6-year Samachaya.
Yeah. Okay, sorry, I got the timing wrong. Yeah. And at that time, there was only an older translation available. That is still available, but there's a newer one. And I'm hopeful that on the basis of the older one, there are some improvements. Anyway, Lama Tsongkhapa notes, and in one footnote, I've mentioned it before. Yeah. Lama Tsongkhapa notes that Arya Nagarjuna's Compendium of Sutras is more explicit in its presentation, so this is now the explanation, is more explicit in its presentation of the Bodhisattva path than his two works mentioned earlier. Okay, I just said that, the Precious Gala and the Praise to the Ultimate Expanse. But even in this more detailed account, there remain stages of the path that are not easy to fully grasp, so the text is still difficult. To address such points, we're lucky to have Shantideva, the great upholder of Arya Nagarjuna's Prasangika tradition, who provides further clarification in his Compendium of Training and Guide to the Bodhisattva Way of Life. In actually both of them, but among these, it's the Compendium of Training that treats the more difficult issues most thoroughly, to such an extent that it is regarded as a meaning commentary. You remember the difference between a word commentary and a meaning commentary? What is a word commentary? You basically, each word is, so you take the root text, it's kind of integrated into the text, and sometimes you just quote it in there, and between all the words that are from the original text, you add your own explanation. So basically every word, every phrase is explained. Meaning commentary is a commentary where that is not done. Okay, great. Therefore, here it's called a meaning commentary. It's not literally taking each line, basically. So it's regarded as a meaning commentary on Arya Nagarjuna's Compendium of Sutras, carefully unpacking and explaining the intention behind Arya Nagarjuna's presentation. So beautiful. If you read these two texts together, you get a better sense of this extremely important text that isn't that well known. So again, something to pay attention to. And again, both have been translated into English. Lama Tsongkhapa's collected works preserves a detailed summary of the Compendium of Training, which was compiled from notes of his teachings on this text at Ratcheng Monastery. I don't know with the foot. I added a footnote because I did some research on this monastery, and it so inspired me. The footnote was actually longer. I thought, like, no, this is so off topic. But it's so beautiful to hear about these monasteries in Tibet. Unfortunately, many of us, we don't go there. I mean, some of us have been maybe, but it's difficult to travel. Of course, with the Chinese government, it makes it very, very hard. But let's not forget, it's such a blessed place. Incredible. I mean, Tibet is such a blessed place. For thousands, no, not thousands, but more than 1,000 years, people have practiced incredibly in a place. I mean, India, of course, is much larger, so it's a little smaller, with relatively few people and so many monks. I mean, like, how many monks lived in Tibet? Like, thinking 6 million people, and thousands of them became monks. Less nuns, but still a lot of nuns, and so many practiced the Dharma so sincerely. Incredible. Amazing. What a place, actually. And then these blessed places. And so I did some research on Ratcheng Monastery, and I thought it was so inspiring. I wanted to go there. And so anyway, I wrote it all down. So I write this footnote. So Ratcheng Monastery, this is where Lama Tsongkhapa gave a teaching. It's also known as Retting. You may have heard the word Retting before. It lies in central Tibet, about 160 kilometers north of Lhasa, in the valley of the Ratcheng Chu. Chu means water. So the Ratcheng Water River, founded in 1056 by Dromtempa. Who was Dromtempa? Dromtempa Gyaltsen June. He was Atisha's lay disciple. So for all of you lay people, he is a really, really important, a lot of the times, especially in this tradition, great practitioners were usually monks, usually male and monks. But here you have a layperson, so important, so amazing. So he founded this monastery. He was there it says, the main disciple of Jo Atisha. It became the mother monastery of the Kadam school. The Kadampa Geshes, who were not Geshes as like an academic kind of title, but they practiced Lojong, these beautiful mind training texts. So very dedicated practitioners, amazingly inspirational. And all the 4 traditions of Buddhism kind of adopted their teachings and is practicing their teachings. So they were renowned for their strict discipline and emphasis on Lojong or mind training. So very much influenced by great compassion and bodhicitta. When the Gelug tradition later developed, it inherited many Kadam teachings, so Rating retained importance for both schools, for the Kadam and the Gelug schools. So it became a Gelug monastery. So nestled in a narrow valley surrounded by juniper forests, said to have been planted by Dromtonpa himself. That's so beautiful about these junipers. And of course they take the branches and they burn them as incense. So the juniper tree, very important. The site has long been revered as a place of retreat, vision and blessing. Beyond its spiritual role, Rating was also politically influential. Rating, because the abbots known as the Reting Rinpoches played key roles in Tibetan history. For example, the 5th Reting Rinpoche served as the regent between 1934 and 1941 during the youth of His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama. You always need a regent, like His Holiness was too small. So during these vacuums, when His Holiness, when the 13th had passed away and the 14th was not ready yet to take on his duties, Reting Rinpoche did so. Much of the monastery was destroyed during the Cultural Revolution, but in recent decades parts have been rebuilt and monastic life has resumed on a smaller scale. Yeah, unfortunately, like the smaller scale, that's politically, of course, motivated by the Chinese government. The juniper forest, however, continues to draw pilgrims and keeps the spirit of the place alive. So, I read this and I thought, I want to go there. So I was tempted. I mean, at first I thought I'm not going to add this footnote, but there's so much more to Buddhism, right? There are these actual places that still hold these blessings, and Tibet is full of them. And fortunately, many of the monasteries have been rebuilt to some degree, which is good news. Okay. So in this summary, he underscores the close structural and thematic parallels between the great Bodhisattva's text, here in particular the Compendium of Training, and Arya Nagarjuna's Compendium of Sutras, identifying the latter as the foundational source upon which the Compendium of Training by Shantideva is based. So we learn something about these important texts that ordinarily we don't even touch. Okay. The text explains, for example, this is Shantideva's text, that one first contemplates the benefits of making this human life meaningful on the basis of contemplating how this life of leisure and opportunities of great value and most difficult to find. So Compendium of Training, again, says it's difficult to get a human rebirth, but use it, right? By all means, don't waste it. We don't know when it comes again. So it emphasizes that very much. Next, by cultivating faith in general and a firm faith based on contemplating the qualities of the Mahayana in particular, Lama Tsongkhapa says, one generates the aspirational awakening mind and then upholds the vows of the engaging awakening mind. Next, one gives away, protects, purifies, and enhances one's body, material resources, and the roots of virtue. It is on the basis of such a presentation that Nagarjuna's Compendium of Sutras should be explained. So he says that the great Bodhisattva Shantideva did a great job explaining, based on what Arya Nagarjuna said, these different points. So it seems like a little bit, where does that come from? Doesn't talk about abandoning the Dharma, doesn't warn us of that. It seems to be going in a different direction, but it's just a meaning commentary, so why not? And so here is to the explanation. In the Compendium of Training, the great Bodhisattva Shantideva sets out a sequence that shows us how to engage in practice in a grounded and practical way. We begin by contemplating how rare and precious our precious human life of leisure and opportunity is, and how difficult it will be to obtain such a chance again. That's really important to remind ourselves. We may, but we may not. Who knows? So very important not just to remember death, but also to remember, wow, this is so unique. And just thinking, without going into all the Lamrim explanations, and of course you should definitely look at them, they're so beautiful in the Lamrim Chemo about the precious human life. And you may have read them, but can you remember? No, it's good to read again and again. And some of the greatest practitioners, they read the Lamrim Chemo, they read the whole book every day a little bit, and they start from the, again, and they read it again every day. Right? I mean, it's only 3 volumes. So, start with like, say, 2 pages every day and make that your practice. I mean, just while you think about that, okay? Get some emotions running. Wow. And then move on. And in that way, you go through the entire Lamrim Chemo after a few years, again and again. Anyway, so this is extremely important. And again, some of the examples they give why it's rare, for me it's so convincing that so few people are interested in the Dharma. You really want to practice it. I mean, I'm not talking about those, not even talking about those Buddhists who are culturally Buddhists, but I told you these stories, like even my classmates, my family, the people in my village, they all think I'm, something is wrong with me. Something when my parents, they sometimes ask me questions about my childhood, and I'm pretty sure they want to find out what my parents did wrong. So I did something so strange. Yeah. Reflecting deeply on this, we naturally stop postponing the study and practice of the Dharma and instead develop a strong sense of urgency to make this life meaningful. Building on that motivation, we then cultivate faith. First, a general trust in the Dharma, and then a firm faith in the universal vehicle in particular that arises from studying and contemplating its qualities. This latter is regarded as aspiring faith in the universal vehicle, right? So this is what my teachers used to say. This is based on the classes I received, because it doesn't say it's aspiring faith. But previously we had believing faith. Here, the faith in the universal vehicle should be aspiring faith. Of course, believing faith comes first, and then there's aspiring faith. But what are these 3 types of faith anyway? So there are actually 3 types of faith, which I'll explain now. In general, the scriptures describe 3 types of faith, which are all based on reasoning. They're all the same in being based on reasoning. Believing faith I already explained. Right? And a lot of the time, as I also said earlier, we just believe in things that we don't know for certain in daily life. Okay? But here I took a particular example in terms of a Lama, for instance. So believing faith is the type of faith explained above, of course already explained, but let's say now when directed, for instance, toward a great Lama. Okay? Of course, a qualified Lama, it's important to analyze. Very, very important. Lama Tsongkhapa says at least 10 years. Usually we're more in a rush. Has anyone does that? Before they accepted someone as the Lama, they waited 10, you did? Is your 12th year? No, I'm kidding. No, it's good. That's actually really good. We don't have to be in a rush, right? Some people are faster, there's no problem. I mean, it's not. But some people are so worried. They're like, I don't have a Lama yet. I have to find a Lama everyone else has. My friends have. Something wrong with me. They've already, and it's not even that they actually rely on that Lama. I mean, it's like, if like faith in the Lama, I think is the most difficult thing to do. It's very easy from afar. You never see them. You have this ideal idea, right, about a Lama. And of course, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, if it's, for instance, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, I mean, wow, amazing. But actually, we don't spend that much time around His Holiness. If we were to, His Holiness would do everything to cut our ego. I mean, He would do everything. It's like they sometimes even in the text says, be careful what you wish. Are you ready to basically, have your Lama put a mirror to your face and show you, right? It's tough. And of course, they know how much you can take. And we sometimes see the Lamas, like, of course, His Holiness having special responsibilities and so forth. There are people who are very close to His Holiness, who live right around His Holiness. You don't ever see them. His Holiness has one attendant who, I don't know if he's alive now, but I remember my teacher used to talk about them. He never left the residence. You never saw him. He was always around His Holiness. He didn't travel with His Holiness, so there was someone else who did. So these you see on the videos, like Gen, what's his name again? Beljo, or I think Gen Beljo. So an elderly monk, you can still see him now. He was with His Holiness. But there's another one apparently who's actually the attendant with His Holiness. So, wow. I mean, like, His Holiness doing everything, for you to, it's tough. And then you do everything His Holiness tells you. Wow. Give totally up your own desires and whatever. Give it up. That is incredible. Even if it's the least thing you want to do. I don't want to say the craziest. No. The thing that you least want to do. You really don't want to do it. That's the last thing you want to do. And His Holiness tells you to do this for the next 20 years. Wow. And we're so used to freedom and making our own decisions in the West. I mean, wow, this is really tough. No wonder, even though it's the root of the path, that's why you find it in the Lamrim teachings in the beginning. But in terms of the difficulty, it should go more towards, it's really, really advanced. And I can think of very few people who really do exactly what their Lama tells them. Those are the really renounced ones, and I'm not one of them. I don't even dare to ask. Yeah, this requires a lot of faith. So anyway, believing faith is the type of faith explained above. When directed, for instance, toward a great Lama, it means trusting them as a genuine holder of the Buddha's teachings. This trust arises, of course, it requires reasoning and observation. So from observing their learning, their teachings, and the qualities they possess. Witnessing their compassion and discipline, seeing how their conduct accords with their words, very important. They live what they teach. And recognizing the impact of their teachings on ourselves and others, all give rise to the conviction that they truly embody the Dharma. You can say so much, you can say so much more about that, of course. You can go into much more detail. But it's not just believing in them for no reason, out of blind faith. I mean, you really give it time, you observe them and so forth. So that's believing faith. You believe that they are truly an embodiment of the teachings. So with His Holiness, for instance, I mean, even though if we only see His Holiness in videos and so forth, or only see, but it's, I think even to us, it becomes pretty obvious that, wow, I mean, just also the impact on others, I think is important. How people benefit from it, how it approaches people in the crowds. I think I told you these stories before. I remember I once sat next to a woman who I just happened to sit close to her, and she looked so depressed. Did I tell you the story? She looked so depressed, and you chat with the people around. This was before I started translating, so you just have a nice place, you have a nice crowd around you usually, and whenever there's a break, you chat a little bit, you smile at each other. But this woman, no, you couldn't. She did not want anything. She looked so sad. And I didn't know what it was, and I talked to her a little bit, but she wasn't interested. And then His Holiness came by and went straight towards her and gave her the biggest hug. I mean, it wasn't like she had something tattooed on her forehead or something. His Holiness basically went through the crowd, so I didn't mind, I was nearby. So went straight and gave her a big hug. And then she was crying. And it turned out her son had just been killed in a motorbike accident. So she was so sad, but that brought it all out. And His Holiness aimed straight for her. He just knew. And I also remember there was a man in the crowd. Every time His Holiness walked past, he talked to him. And then went back and forth the whole time. We were wondering, what is so special about him? And we found out he was the first Muslim who ever registered for the teachings. He came from Egypt. It was after right? So apparently, I don't know, first Muslim, yeah, it's hard to say, but from all the non-Asians, apparently, yeah. And so His Holiness, he didn't look that different. He could have been Indian, whatever. We were like, why? And because when he registered or something, I forget now, he said, yes, he was the first Egyptian. But I don't think the people from the registration office bring His Holiness photographs of everyone is there and say, pay attention to him. No, His Holiness just knew he was the first. Yeah, anyway. So this, and then so many stories from His Holiness, so many amazing stories, and you go, either this is just really a weird coincidence that people make up these weird stories, especially around this person, or there's something to it. Yeah, so many beautiful stories. Someone just told me this story of someone who was actually there. When His Holiness went to California in the 80s, 90s, like during the time of AIDS, there was a community of gay, like a gay community, who greeted His Holiness, and there were some people who had a special handshake, like, I don't know, like tuk, 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 or something, right? They do this tuk, 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 something, and then or whatever. So there was like a group of these friends, and one of them was really, really sick with AIDS. Like, he was actually suffering greatly. And His Holiness went into the crowd and he did that handshake with them. Like, it's not like they went to his hotel room and told them, like, there's this handshake. And he kind of did that, and people were like, what? And the person he did it with died the next day. But His Holiness knew, and he gave him that. So special. Did I tell you the story about this comedian? Yeah, some of you know the story. There's a famous German comedian. What's his name? Harpe Kerkeling. Yeah, do you know the story? Do you want to hear the story about the comedian? Okay. This is a famous German comedian that no one else knows outside of Germany. Are you from Germany?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Anyone who's German speaking but doesn't live in Germany? No. Because I asked people from Austria or Switzerland, I'm like, who's Harpe Kerkeling? So anyway, he's kind of famous in Germany. And he lost his mother when he was very young. His mother suffered from depression. And because his mother suffered from depression, it was so bad, he wanted to cheer her up. So he became really funny. That was his whole thing. He loved his mother dearly. And he, became this joking guy and would be able to cheer up his mom. Anyway, she committed suicide when he was still very young. He was only 11 or 12. And it broke his heart. I mean, it's like, people don't know about this, but it didn't know for the longest time until he wrote a book. And so he wrote about the pain of losing his mother, and she didn't say goodbye. That was one of the worst things. She didn't tell him. She just sent him to his room. She killed herself, and she was dead. It was so terrible. And this pain must have, sat with him for years that he lost his mother. And I guess he didn't do much about it. Or maybe he did, I don't know. But in his book, in this particular book, I didn't read the whole book, I only wrote those pages. I only read these particular pages. My mom told me about them. One day he was in some place in Germany with some journalists, and they said, oh, the Dalai Lama is in town. Do you want to see him? And he's like, sure. Yeah, okay, let's go and see him. So it was like a whole group. I guess His Holiness was giving a teaching somewhere, and he was seeing people. Maybe there was a press conference. Anyway, so they took him along, and His Holiness, I'm sure, if you don't know who Harpe Kerkeling is, I don't think His Holiness knew who he was. So anyway, he writes in his book, everyone walked up to His Holiness, and His Holiness talked to them and gave them, I don't know whether he said a blessing, but greeted them, spoke a few words. And the thing he said to Harpe Kerkeling, I have to control myself not to start crying. He said, it's very difficult to lose your mother. I lost my mother, and it was such pain. It was so difficult for me, right? And then Harpe Kerkeling is like, wow, it's like lightning. right? He started crying. He said he didn't stop crying for 2 weeks. For 2 weeks, he was just crying. So it all came out. And His Holiness basically helped him. I mean, like, how did you know? Unless, until the book came out, people didn't know about that, right? So only then afterwards. But His Holiness, that's what he did. He knew this was this pain and he knew how to address it. I mean, when you hear these stories time and again, I mean, like, no way you could not be convinced this is an incredible being, right? So in that way, we're lucky to have access to His Holiness, to these public records, to videos and so forth. But it's still good to have reasoning and to hear as many stories as possible. I hope eventually they'll have an archive just on these stories of what His Holiness, that people who have these stories come forward and record it somewhere. And in the end, there's like a book, and it's so inspiring just to hear and read this. Okay, anyway, that's believing faith. And then there is clear faith, also called admiring faith, which is the joyful and uplifting feeling that arises when we contemplate the Dharma, the Lama and their qualities. Again, think of like, this is not about believing that they're incredible, but the joy. Right? His Holiness has come, people come running, like His Holiness is coming to the temple and people run because there's this joy to see His Holiness, right? Or you stand at the side of the road for hours, the smoke is in your eyes, the person, more and more people come in front of you. You were in the front before, but there's always someone, right? It's tough. And you wait and you want to sit down, you need to go to the bathroom, but you don't want to miss His Holiness arriving. You do all this, you wouldn't do it for anyone else, but for His Holiness. It's that joy, just seeing and happen to look in your direction and like, he looked at me and everyone else felt they looked at them. So you're all very satisfied, Looked at me, no, you looked at me. So, this joy, it's this joy. That's why people fight over the seats to be near His Holiness. It's because it's joy to just see Him, right? That's it. So it's unfortunately gives rise to attachment, obviously. Is the joyful and uplifting feeling that arises when we contemplate the Lama and their qualities. Simply recalling the Lama may fill our mind with delight and clarity. It says it even in the prayers. When you do these prayers, you think of your Lama, just simply thinking of them, your misery's gone, right? If you really think of His Holiness, what is there to worry? If you really think of these amazing Lamas, our problems are nothing. We have His Holiness. Honestly, right? They're just superficial, our problems. So simply recalling the Lama may fill our mind with delight and clarity, dispelling doubt and discouragement. That's also really important. Just thinking of them, that joy. So previously me may feel, I can't do this, and have this doubt and that doubt. But then it's like, God becomes alive in the form of His Holiness. I remember when I got my degree, after I've graduated from the IBD, Lama Zopa Rinpoche came to town. Khumpin told me. And suddenly I was like, I want to see Lama Zopa Rinpoche. I had seen him 2 or 3 times during my studies. So intensive, and Lama Zopa Rinpoche didn't come much. I remember one time I saw Lama Zopa Rinpoche, and that was so embarrassing. I knew that that was while I was studying. I knew Lama Zopa Rinpoche was a vegetarian for many years, and at that time I wasn't. And so I knew he was very convinced about not eating meat. So I was there, this building there, before Loma. I used to live in that building before Loma. No, there's a shop, but before that, in that building, I lived for 10 years. And I happened to be outside with a bag of momos, meat momos. You could smell the mutton, like big bag. And behind me there was like a, what do you call that? That kind of, it's not a motorbike. It's like one of those where you could put your feet on, like, scooter. There was a scooter, right? And Lama Zopa Rinpoche is coming this way. I see him. And I'm like, wow, Lama Zopa Rinpoche. Oh no, I've got meat momos. So I threw them in the scooter. Kind of like, like just behind me. So I waited until Lama Zopa Rinpoche, like, hello. Lama Zopa Rinpoche said hello. He walked past, retrieved my momos. But I was embarrassed the whole time because I didn't know what lamas. But I knew Rinpoche knew. I just threw these momos into the scooter. So that was the only encounter I actually remember with Lamas of Rinpoche. And before I joined the IBD, I got some teachings, and Rinpoche blew my mind. But then during the studies, it was so intense, and there was really hardly any time, and there were no teachings in the vicinity, at least not that I knew of. Anyway, so Lamas of Rinpoche came after I got the degree, and I really needed to see him. And I did. I went to Tashita, and Rinpoche gave teachings, and I remember thinking, everything I studied is embodied in him. It was so amazing. With Rinpoche, it was so amazing. And Tushita looked like a Puram to me. The leaves looked golden. I don't know what, it was like everything surrounding Rinpoche was just pure. So that was the presence of Lamas of Rinpoche. It was so amazing. Like, all I could think was, what I studied in theory, there it is in practice. So amazing. Yeah. Anyway, okay. So simply recalling the Lama may fill our mind with delight and clarity, dispelling doubt and discouragement. This appreciation and admiration clears and steadies the mind, making it open, receptive, and inspired. That's why we need the Lamas. It is a powerful emotional response that naturally draws us closer and inclines us to seek the Lama's guidance. And you know what they also say? This is what I learned from Geshe Damdul. Geshe Damdul is also one of these amazing, I would say, Lamas. He's not recognized as a Lama, but I just remember years ago when he still lived here, he was actually our teacher at the IBD. He taught us Abhidharma Kosha before he became His Holiness's translator. So he wasn't teaching in English then. Well, he did the Emory, he taught the Emory students for a semester every year, but Geshe-la didn't, I don't think he taught Westerners besides that. But I would sometimes go to see him. He was very open for people to go there. And there was always so many people coming. All day long, people were coming. And so I'd sit there, and then a relative would come in, and then someone else would come in. But he always took his time. So you had to bring a little bit more time if you had a question. So you just sat down, maybe he answered a question, and then someone else. But it was nice, just hear other questions. So there was always a lot of in and out in his room. And he once told me this beautiful, he said this beautiful thing. I've heard it, I had heard it before, but no one had explained it in that beautiful way. And maybe I'm now adding a little bit because over time I thought about this a lot, but it led me to this understanding. Like the Lamas, they can give you a little bit of their insight temporarily. As in, like, you're in their presence, and suddenly you have this incredible compassion for all sentient beings. You have this incredible, I don't know, you suddenly, it's like it opens something in your mind that ordinarily you don't have. This is what the Lama can do. The problem is it goes away. And then you have to work on it to retrieve it. But it's through, they sometimes call it the blessing. But of course, blessing, the Tibetan word for blessing, means to change into something greater. So it's not like, I don't know, throwing something at you, like, like Harry Potter kind of like, like that kind. No, it's more like through their presence, they change you into something greater. They give you a taste of something. So I'm always reminded of that when you go to a supermarket and they give you, now this is a really stupid analogy, but you go to a supermarket and they give you a piece of cheese to try. You still have to buy it. They're not going to give you the whole thing. You can try a little bit, but then if you really want to eat the whole cheese, you have to still buy it. So it feels a bit like that the Lama gives you a taste of it. It gives you a taste of what's possible. And you've never had that before. And suddenly you realize, oh my God, I can do this. I can actually have that. So in the presence of the Lama. And again, of course, you go home and it's gone. Or maybe it lingers for a few days, but then it disappears. But at least you know you can do it. You have that capacity. And then start working towards it and recognize within yourself you can actually, slowly generate that. I mean, maybe it takes a little bit more time than that, but you get a taste at least. And even if you're just in the beginning stage, it's possible that in someday in the future you can get back to that. I think that's really important. Yeah, and that comes from the Lama. And then aspiring faith is the heartfelt wish to develop within yourself or within ourselves the very same qualities we admire in the Lama. That's the third type. So observing their wisdom, compassion, and tireless dedication to others, we aspire to cultivate those same virtues and to follow the path they embody. This faith looks ahead, filling us with the resolve to engage in study, reflection, and meditation so that we too may advance toward the same realizations. So, right, all three are important. However, for different reasons. So I think with the Lama, it's beautiful because why is it beautiful? Why is it important as well? Because everything we learn here is theory right now. It's theoretical. But then the Lama, we can see that practiced. I mean, we can also see it in others, in other great practitioners. I think Jetsuma Tenzin Palmo is an example. Like I keep saying, I'm not impressed by her having lived in a cave. And that's not what I find impressive about here. Anyone can live in a cave, like the animals that live in caves, it's not a big deal, right? I mean, no, the cave is impressive. It is impressive what she did. But, after her, there were other people. No, it's who she is. I mean, the way she talks, her understanding of the Dharma, first of all, it comes from her own experience. The way she is so honest and amazing. She embodies the Dharma in so many ways. I mean, born as a woman, as a Westerner, it was hard enough for her, what she achieved. All that is amazing. But on top of it, who she is now. I think that's what's most important, yeah. And so there are many other examples, of course, as well. So that's where it's important to find this embodiment of the teaching so we know it's possible. Yeah, so first understanding there, an embodiment of the teachings, the joy we experience, rejoicing. So rejoicing, of course, is very important, but that seems to require some effort, right? Okay, I need to rejoice now, rejoice. No, but the second type, it's more like, it's almost like a natural, just wow, seeing them, and there's so much joy. And sometimes it's real fun to watch the people as His Holiness walks past. If you don't pay attention to His Holiness, pay attention to the people. And you can see that their smiles, you never see them smile like that. Right? These huge smiles on their faces. That's also inspiring. And then, of course, most important is the last one. That's the most important one, to aspiring to become just like them. And that's when I keep saying, be bold. Don't be timid, be bold. We can all do it. So, yeah. Firm faith and the universal vehicle refers to the aspiration, and this is where we left off before I explained the three types. So firm faith and the universal vehicle, as explained by Shantideva in his commentary on the Compendium of Sutra, it refers to the aspiration to cultivate within our own mental continuum the qualities and realizations of that vehicle. Above all, the qualities and realizations of a fully awakened Buddha. And that kind of faith accompanies contrived bodhicitta, right? So first you have contrived bodhicitta, the bodhicitta that requires some effort. But that is accompanied by that kind of faith. You want to become like that. So it's not yet spontaneous, and for the benefit of all sentient beings, that's not that strong. But also that aspiration to really become like that, that's when you train it. First I was thinking, that sounds like bodhicitta itself. But no, I checked with my teachers. No, they were very clear. That's contrived. That's at the time of contrived bodhicitta. So the aspiration to become like that, it's very similar to bodhicitta, really, except here we look at it from the point of view of faith, and it's still not the uncontrived, the spontaneous type. Based on this, we then generate the uncontrived awakening mind in its aspirational form. So this is why, exactly before, first you appreciate the precious human rebirth, then you accumulate, then you generate faith. Faith in general in the Dharma, okay. Believing faith, okay. But then, in particular, when it comes to the universal vehicle, believing faith, but most importantly, aspiration of faith, which is already faith in, or the aspiration to become a Buddha yourself, contrived bodhicitta, which gives rise to uncontrived bodhicitta. So you see how one leads to the next, leads to the next. Yeah, so beautifully expressed here by Lama Tsongkhapa. So anyway, so this marks a turning point. Now you have, at that stage we proceed by, based on this, we then generate the uncontrived awakening mind in its aspirational form, called aspirational bodhicitta. So uncontrived bodhicitta, the first moment of uncontrived bodhicitta is called aspirational bodhicitta. Sometimes people believe that aspirational bodhicitta means the wish to have bodhicitta. That's not what this means. Aspirational bodhicitta does not mean, oh, I wish one day I have bodhicitta, so that aspiration. Aspirational bodhicitta is the name given to real bodhicitta in the continuum of someone who hasn't taken the bodhisattva vow yet. So when we study the text, when you study philosophy, Buddhist philosophy, first you learn that you generate bodhicitta for the first time, and that by definition is called aspirational bodhicitta. It's always called aspirational bodhicitta. Even though you've taken the bodhisattva vow before. Okay, this is a little bit debatable. Not everyone agrees, but okay. This is how I learned it, so I put in my own. Okay. So anyway, you generate aspirational bodhicitta. For the first time, you generate uncontrived awakening mind, so called aspirational bodhicitta, the heartfelt wish to attain Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings without yet having received the bodhisattva vow. Okay? And thus, you enter the path of accumulation. Now you're on the path of accumulation. Okay? Is that clear? So, you have bodhicitta called aspirational bodhicitta. At that stage, then we proceed by taking the bodhisattva vow. And with that step, our bodhicitta now becomes engaging bodhicitta. Now it's called engaging bodhicitta. This marks a turning point. We're no longer committed only to wish for awakening, but also to carrying out the actual practices of a bodhisattva. What does Shantideva say to this? How does Shantideva differentiate between aspirational bodhicitta and engaging bodhicitta in his bodhisattva way of life? How does it?
To go and actually going.
The wish to go somewhere and actually going. Puts it exactly in those words. So the wish to go somewhere, that is like aspirational bodhicitta. You wish to become enlightened for the benefit of all sentient beings. But with taking the bodhisattva vow, it gives you that push, that having made that commitment, even though you were already engaging in certain activities, but it becomes more powerful through the vow. Vows are somehow psychologically more powerful. There's a beautiful story about how they're powerful. Do you know the story about the butcher? Do you know the butcher story? Right? There's a story. So there was a time, at the time of the Buddha, Aiden, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't remember it correctly, but there's this, the story goes that at the time of the Buddha, I believe it was at the time of the Buddha, there was a butcher who killed animals as a butcher. And so he went to the Buddha and he said, oh, what should I do? You know, it's so difficult. I want to follow your teachings, but I can't, this is my livelihood. I can't just give it up. I have to feed my family. I have to kill animals. And so the Buddha said, okay, well, what you could do is, well, you don't, do you, Buddha, he asked first, do you also kill animals at night? And he's like, no, at night I sleep, I rest, I don't kill any animals. And the Buddha said, okay, so take a vow that you won't kill at night. Take a vow that you won't kill at night. And so he did. So during the day, he didn't take the vow, he didn't break the vow, he had only taken it for the night. But the virtue was so much greater. The virtue was so much greater having taken the vow throughout the day, throughout the night. So therefore they said the rebirth, okay, that's a little depressing now. Kind of said like he experienced incredible suffering throughout the day as a result of having killed animals, but at night it was very blissful. Okay, never mind that part. But the point is, that, yes, so having taken that vow, actually he just didn't kill, so big deal. But if you take a vow of not killing, without killing anyway, it makes it more powerful. There's this virtue because you take it with a motivation, yes, to benefit other sentient beings and so forth, at the very least with renunciation, so your motivation is very special. But also psychologically, it has a different effect on the mind. And I usually give the example of wedding vows. You know, people sometimes get married because it helps them to be more faithful. If they've made that promise to the other person, they're less likely to leave the person or be unfaithful. So for some people's mind, it may actually work better that way. That's why also having vows for us as monks and nuns, they say there is a special virtue. Even if I were to keep these vows without taking them, right? I could keep the vows without taking them, and some would argue it's the same thing. But it said that no, because of that extra promise you make, it has a more powerful effect. That doesn't mean you have to have vows, etc. You could be a much better practitioner than any monk or nun. It doesn't come down to that. But for some people, it's just more effective that way. And it gives us more freedom. It gives you more freedom. That may sound a little weird, right? Does it sound weird? I have so much more freedom. I don't have to decide which haircut. I don't have to decide which clothes, what's in fashion or not. Life is so much easier. I don't have to decide, am I going to be with that person or not? No person. None. So certain decisions I don't have to make. So much more freedom. But of course, for another person, it could have the opposite effect. Right? No freedom. I can't keep my hair long or have a perm. I can't wear yellow. Well, it'll be a while until I get a perm. But yeah, anyway. But it gives you a lot of freedom within these, restrictions, if you like. Yes, Aiden, you raised your hand.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons Lama Rinpoche used to taking the 1 day Mahayana vows. Keep it for a day much easily.
Very good. Yeah, so Aiden's just saying that, well, that's one of the reasons Lama Rinpoche often gave the 1 day vow, saying this is such an opportunity, you may not be able to keep the vow every day, because one of the vows, like the especially with the Mahayana motivation, which then becomes the Mahayana precepts, or the precepts of the universal vehicle, you're celibate on that day, right? You're celibate on that day, you're just totally focused on the Dharma. You're just totally focused, not taking anything that was not given and so forth, giving you this opportunity to accumulate a lot of merit. And then some people decide to take it every day. Some people take these precepts every day, yeah, without becoming ordained, and on special days at the very least. And it's said to, be quite powerful in terms of accumulating a lot of virtue. Yeah. Yes, please.
What did you mean about if someone took before Bodhisattva engaging vows?
Yes. Yeah, okay. All right. So this is a little bit debatable. I'll just read this part and then anyway we can... where did I say that? Where did I say that about the Bodhisattva vow? I thought I explained it. Did I not explain it?
You explained before about once you take up engaging Bodhisattva vows, you get for engaging.
I thought I explained it. I remember writing it. Maybe I deleted it by mistake. Wait, let me just look for it. Bodhisattva vow. Bodhisattva vow. 16 times I used the word. Okay. Was not yet taken. Aspiration. Oh, yeah. I did talk about it. All right. That was on page 30. If you don't mind, if you can go back to page 30. All right, I did talk about, yes, aspiration of bodhicitta is the awakening mind in the continuum of someone who has not yet taken the bodhisattva vow, which consists of 18 root vows and 46 secondary vows. Engaging bodhicitta, okay. All right, so then in the 2 paragraphs down from there, it says, it's important to note that according to many commentaries, I said many, not all commentaries, practitioners must first cultivate bodhicitta, and only then can they fully receive the bodhisattva vow, thereby transforming their aspiration of bodhicitta into engaging bodhicitta. This is because for the vow to be received, you can take it, but receiving it's different. the awakening mind must already have been generated, since one of its principal precepts is not to give up bodhicitta. Such a commitment is only possible if there's something that could, in principle, be abandoned, namely bodhicitta itself. So if you don't have bodhicitta, how can you take the vow not to give up bodhicitta? That's the logic behind that. Not everyone would agree, but yeah. Namely bodhicitta. Nevertheless, it is said to be extremely beneficial to take the bodhisattva vow from a qualified lama even without having generated the awakening mind. For although it is not truly received in that case, taking it still plants powerful imprints in the mind that support the future development of bodhicitta. But I've also heard a different explanation. So this is based on the text we studied by Panchen Sonatapa. He says that first you generate aspiration of bodhicitta. If you had already the bodhisattva vow, before you generate bodhicitta, if you have already a bodhisattva vow, then the moment you generate bodhicitta, it must be engaging bodhicitta, right? Because aspiration of bodhicitta is bodhicitta without having received the vow. So first of all, that would contradict the explanation in our text. But, you know, there's different, maybe there are some people who receive, I don't know how that works if you don't have the vow. I mean, to me, logically, it doesn't make sense. Don't give up bodhicitta if I don't have bodhicitta. How can I take a vow? Don't give up whatever. Don't give up compassion if I have no compassion. But again, some people would disagree. I don't know how, they maybe say contrived bodhicitta is enough. But I don't have contrived bodhicitta either. Contrived bodhicitta is not the wish, may I be enlightened for the benefit of all sentient. That's not contrived bodhicitta. You must have great compassion. I don't have great compassion. Sorry. No. So I don't have contrived bodhicitta. There's a different kind of bodhicitta that's mentioned later on, which is like just generating it as part of your daily meditation without having generated great compassion. That, okay, I can have for 2 seconds, right? If I do the practice. But not contrived bodhicitta. So some would say, okay, you can have contrived bodhicitta and then you have contrived bodhicitta and therefore in that moment you give it up. Or you can say, I'm not going to give that up. That works. Yeah, so in answer to this, but as I said, there is some disagreement. Yeah. All right. I think we can open it to questions. That's enough. If you have any questions, I mean, enough material covered. All right, let me check. Is there a subtle link of 12 links of dependent origination? Is there a subtle link? Coarse link of the 12 links of dependent origination? Subtle link. Having talked about what? Subtle death, subtle coarse death, subtle death, or mara of death. Coarse aggregates, subtle aggregates. Coarse afflictions, subtle afflictions, right? They're all connected. You see? First of all, in particular, first 3. Coarse afflictions are what? The afflictions, the coarse mara of afflictions, sorry. What is the coarse mara of afflictions? What does it refer to? No, of the 4 maras, you have the coarse mara of afflictions and you have the subtle mara of afflictions. What is the coarse mara of afflictions of the 12 links? Pardon? Huh?
On the body?
No. Again, the coarse... No, it's the afflictive obscurations, the obscurations to liberation. So the obscurations to liberation, that which you have to overcome in order to become liberated. That's the afflictive, that's the coarse mara of the afflictions. What is the subtle mara of the afflictions? The cognitive obscurations. So, okay, now here you see, this is kind of like the main mara. Coarse, the afflictions and whatever keeps you, whatever prevents you from liberation, and subtle, whatever keeps you from enlightenment. And now from there, okay, so coarse aggregates. Coarse aggregates. What gives rise to the coarse aggregates? The coarse mara. Afflictions and karma. Right? What are the afflictive obscurations? They are afflictions and there are seeds, and actually also karma, right? Karma, yeah, you could say karma as well. I mean, kind of not included really, but still, yeah, it's karma. All right, so that's when you overcome that, when you overcome the afflictions, you overcome the coarse Mara. And you overcome coarse death as well. Coarse death, that uncontrolled. You see, as long as karma and afflictions are in control, first of all, you have the coarse Mara of the aggregates, you have the coarse aggregates, you have the coarse Mara of the afflictions, you have the coarse Mara of the aggregates, and you have the coarse Mara of death. So with these first three, why are they coarse? Because they're controlled by afflictions and karma. No control over this body, very little control over this body, very little control over this mind, because it's controlled by karma and afflictions. In this case of death, same thing. Okay, so you see how these first three coarse types are all related to the Mara of the afflictions, and so therefore the first two types are related to the Mara of afflictions. Okay, the Mara of Devaputra is different, slightly different. Okay, so just focus on those three. And what about the subtler one? The subtle Mara of the afflictions is the cognitive obscurations. What are the cognitive obscurations? The imprints mainly of ignorance. That's the main imprint of ignorance. Okay, now let's look at the Mara of the aggregates, the subtle Mara of the aggregates. What caused it? What is that body? What is the 5 aggregates that are not the aggregates of a Buddha, of a Bodhisattva? So how did I describe them? What gives rise to this subtle Mara of the aggregates?
Imprints of ignorance.
The imprints of ignorance and uncontaminated karma, the wish to take such a body. Remember, I talked about that. Very important, the connection. So you have, instead of ignorance of the 12 links, you have usually ignorance and then contaminated karma. Link number 1 is ignorance. Link number 2? Karma, yeah. It's basically projecting karma, which is contaminated karma, to be thrown without any control into samsara. Now, in the case of a bodhisattva, who has, for instance, reached the 8th ground, now they're liberated. What did they get rid of?
50 obscurations.
They have gotten rid of the core.
Yeah.
It's back? Great. Great how you all noticed. I could see like all of you looking. At first that you were looking in the corner. Okay, so you got rid of the coarse Mara of afflictions. In other words, you got rid of the afflictive obscurations, that which prevents liberation, because now you're liberated. And you want to be reborn. Well, now you have the imprints of ignorance instead of ignorance, and you have not contaminated karma, but uncontaminated karma. The wish to be reborn for the benefit of others. Okay? And then when you die in this life, now what is number 8 and number 9? Craving and grasping? Yes or no? You've overcome craving and grasping. You're liberated. As an arhat doesn't have craving and grasping. Those are afflictions. So if you eliminate the root ignorance, you have no longer any afflictions. You certainly don't have craving and grasping, right? No craving and grasping. So you die not under the control of contaminated karma and afflictions, and you're not reborn under the control of uncontaminated karma and afflictions, right? You're only reborn under the control of the imprints of ignorance and uncontaminated karma. And then just before you die, it's not craving and grasping, because those are gone. It's compassion and the aspiration, the prayer to be reborn. So it's a different type of 12 links. Is it coarse or is it subtle? Subtle. All right, in answer to the question, is there a subtle? Is there an explanation on subtle 12 links? That would be the subtle version, right? So you've overcome the coarse Mara, the coarse Mara of afflictions, the coarse Mara of the aggregates, and the coarse Mara of death. because now you're liberated. However, now, even despite being liberated, you're not yet a Buddha. Just being liberated doesn't mean you're a Buddha. Whether you're an Arhat, a Hira, or a solitary realizer Arhat, you still got work to do. You will enter the Mahayana path, the path of the universal vehicle. You will. That's the next step. Whether you agreed to that before or not, now you will enter the universal vehicle because you have no afflictions left. You're a great candidate now. I mean, you know, your mind is pure in a very profound way. And now you need to take on a mental body. You need to have a body to accumulate virtue, to be able to communicate, to practice generosity and so forth. So you need to be around obnoxious people to practice patience and so forth. How do you take a mental body? You need the imprints. You can't just manifest like a Buddha yet. Can't manifest like a Buddha yet, right? Buddha can just spontaneously be everywhere. But no. Now it's through the imprints of karma, the imprints of ignorance, that's you're still left with. You're still left with that. Whether you're a hero, solitary realizer, arhat, or a bodhisattva arhat. You still want to be in samsara, now for the benefit of others. And so now you need the imprints, an uncontaminated karma, plus great compassion and prayer, and you continue having a body that may look just like an ordinary body, but it's actually called a mental body. So you see, of the 12 links, 4 links have been replaced. The first, the second, number 9, and number 10. And of course, these are the main ones, so the rest of it is also different. So it's a subtler type of 12 links. Yes?
We were talking about the hell realms earlier.
Yes.
So how do the 12 links, for example, work in these different realms? Are there babies in the hell realm? Are there compassionate mothers raising hell beings? Like, how do they die? Because they get their head chopped off anywhere all the time.
So how does it work? The 12 links in the hell realms. Are there babies in the hell realms? Are there mothers that are compassionate? They get their heads chopped off anyway. So I'm trying to repeat the question. Yeah. Well, first of all, the hell realms are quite different in terms of you don't have parents. There's like something called like a spontaneous birth. Like you're not like. In the animal realm, even in the animal realm, no, not really. Well, maybe Nagas, I'm not sure. But yeah, there are realms where you don't have parents. You're just spontaneously born. So in the hell realms, it's not like you're raised like a baby hell being or something. You've got like a house on fire where you grow up or something. No, you're actually spontaneously born there and you just experience incredible suffering. Yeah. So the 12 links would be like, for instance, if in this lifetime now I've accumulated, let's say, I don't think it's that easy to be reborn in the hell realm. But there are people who spend their whole life killing others, for instance. Like I'm thinking of like a serial killer who just enjoys killing. That would be probably, but we don't know, what other karma they've accumulated. So to keep it simple, let's say they haven't really accumulated a lot of virtue, and instead they enjoy killing women, torturing them, and men as well, and they've killed hundreds. So then it becomes, easier to be reborn there. So what happens is at the time of death, they've accumulated the karma as part of their killing spree, accumulated a projecting karma. First there was ignorance, of course, giving rise to the actions of killing. So they accumulated the karma to be reborn in the hell realm. But again, when you die, that doesn't necessarily have to ripen. But if there's strong craving and grasping on top of just wanting to stay alive, which we all have, maybe wanting to kill again, wanting to slash people again and so forth as part of their tendency, then that karma ripens. And they're spontaneously born in that hellish existence. So why do we say they're hell being? Because their body, the way they perceive themselves, is that of a hell being. We don't perceive them. But I was thinking today, actually before class, because it did come up, or it came up as part of Banu's question. So I was thinking, how about someone has some mental problem and they see themselves with the hellish body, but everyone else sees them with the human body. So what are they? a hell being or a human being, right? That's a little bit like, for them, they're actually in a hellish existence. They see themselves on fire, for instance. We see them just as an ordinary person, maybe in a asylum, what do you call it, like a mental hospital. So they experience a kind of hell, but strictly speaking, they haven't died as a human being yet. And so, but from their perspective, and they talk about temporary hell anyway, that would be considered a temporary hell. You can actually, as a human being, experience what's called a temporary hell, where you just have a hellish experience, but you're not really in the hell. So it's just a temporary state. Anyway, going back to this question, yeah, so with the 12 links, then you're reborn as a result of that. You're reborn in the hell realm after that. It's what's called the hellish realm, yeah. And no longer any of us can perceive them. Unless you have special meditation abilities, you can perceive them. And there are a lot of accounts in the text where a great meditator actually went there and saw it for themselves, was able to, without suffering the same, could see what they saw. And went back to report back, but people thought he was crazy. So, I mean, no, some other practitioners knew that they was telling the truth, but of course, how can you prove what you see, what you've seen? You can't show it to anyone else, right? Okay. Anyway, sorry, I couldn't answer all the questions, and there's 6 o'clock now. I'll do it next time. Yeah, I'll do it next time. Okay, great. Thank you very much. Great questions, and yeah, thank you for your interest. And let's, of course, make sure whatever positive potential we accumulated, that it doesn't get lost through getting angry or doesn't ripen into some meaningless experience, but may instead ripen in the form of our own enlightenment for the welfare of all sentient beings. In the snow-encircled land, you are the source of benefit and bliss. Avalokiteshvara Denzing Gyatso, please remain until samsara ends. May the precious Bodhi mind, not yet born, arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forevermore. May the precious view of emptiness, not yet born, arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forevermore. All right, thank you. Enjoy your weekend.